To find the real Scythians, we must look beyond the ancient myths. Our quest for answers relies on three main sources of information. The first, and most important, is archaeology. Archaeologists are like detectives of the past. They carefully excavate the physical remains the Scythians left behind. The most spectacular of these are the burial mounds, known as kurgans. These earthen pyramids dot the steppe landscape. Inside, archaeologists have found the preserved bodies of Scythian nobles. Their skin is often covered in intricate tattoos. They are buried with their finest clothes. They are buried with their weapons. They are buried with incredible treasures made of gold. These tombs are time capsules that give us a direct glimpse into their world. The second source is a careful rereading of ancient texts. Writers like Herodotus were not just telling tall tales. Hidden within their stories are valuable clues. When we compare their descriptions with what archaeologists find, we can start to see patterns. For example, Herodotus described how the Scythians buried their kings with their horses and servants. For a long time, this was dismissed as a gruesome fantasy. But archaeological digs have confirmed that this exact practice took place. By cross-referencing the written word with the physical evidence, we can begin to separate credible observations from exaggerated folklore and build a more accurate picture. The third pillar of our investigation is modern science. New technologies are revolutionizing our understanding of ancient peoples. Geneticists can now analyze DNA extracted from ancient Scythian bones. This helps us trace their origins and understand how different nomadic groups were related to each other. It can tell us where they came from and how they migrated across the vast steppe. Similarly, chemical analysis of their remains can reveal what they ate and drank. These scientific tools provide a new layer of evidence. They allow us to answer questions that archaeology and ancient texts alone cannot resolve, bringing us closer to the people themselves. In this exploration, we will piece together all this evidence. We will journey across the steppes and into the tombs of Scythian kings. We will journey into the tombs of warrior women. We will examine their art. We will examine their tools. We will examine their weapons. We promise to present a clear and simple account of what we know. The goal is to strip away the centuries of myth and speculation. By relying on the solid ground of scientific and archaeological evidence, we can begin to unpack the true story of their culture, their beliefs, and their power. We will meet the real Scythians, a people far more complex and compelling than the legends ever suggested. To truly know the Scythians, we must first understand their home. Their world was the Eurasian steppe, a colossal expanse of grassland. It seems to stretch on forever. Imagine a landscape so vast, the sky feels like a giant dome overhead. This sea of grass runs from the Danube River in Eastern Europe, across Ukraine and southern Russia, all the way to the Altai Mountains near Mongolia. For much of the year, it is harsh and unforgiving. Winters are brutally cold, with fierce winds across frozen plains. Summers are hot and dry, turning the earth hard and dusty. This was the stage of the Scythian story. The environment dictated their way of life. The steppe wasn't suitable for large-scale farming like Greece or Persia. Soil was thin, climate unpredictable. But the steppe had grass in abundance, an endless pasture, perfect fuel for vast herds, sheep, cattle, horses, most importantly. So the Scythians became nomads, masters of pastoralism. No stone cities or permanent towns. Life was a cycle of movement, following seasons, grazing, and water. The Scythians emerged around the 9th century BCE, not a single empire, but a confederation of related tribes sharing language and lifestyle. They spread rapidly. Mobility gave them advantage. By the 7th century BCE, their influence was widespread. They pushed groups like the Sumerians aside. They raided deep into the Middle East and clashed with Assyria. Their domain was measured by the reach of their horses and the grasslands they controlled. To outsiders, they seemed to appear out of nowhere, a force of nature. Speed and unpredictability were terrifying to settled peoples. The Greeks saw them as wild and chaotic. They had no fixed addresses. Wealth was livestock, not land. The steppe was both fortress and highway. It bred resilience, self-sufficiency, and a deep bond with nature. It was the heart of their power and source of identity. So where did these formidable nomads come from? For a long time, this was a major puzzle. Ancient writers like Herodotus offered conflicting stories. One tale claimed they migrated from Asia. Another said they sprang from the land itself, born of a mythical hero and a half-woman, half-snake goddess. For centuries, those legends were all we had. No written records from the Scythians themselves left their origins mysterious. Modern research gave us powerful new tools. By studying ancient languages and by analyzing DNA, we're piecing together a clearer origin story. Linguistic evidence gives our first solid clues. The Scythian language is extinct, but traces survive. We find them in personal names and in place names, recorded by Greek writers, Persian writers, Assyrian writers. Linguists determined Scythian belonged to the Iranian branch of Indo-European, so it was related to the languages of the Persians and the Medes. That suggests Scythian ancestors were part of a wider Iranic-speaking group. They spread from a common homeland in Central Asia thousands of years ago. Genetic science adds incredible detail. Scientists extract and analyze ancient DNA from skeletons and Scythian kurgans. The results are groundbreaking. They show Scythians were not a single homogeneous people. Instead, they had mixed genetic heritage. Earliest Western Scythians in the Pontic-Caspian steppe link to local Bronze Age herders. But there's also a significant genetic link farther east, particularly to the Altai Mountains region, where a related nomadic culture thrived. A compelling migration theory emerges. Mobile pastoralist groups from the east, likely from Altai, began moving westward. Around the 9th century BCE and the 8th century BCE, they migrated into lands north of the Black Sea. There they mixed with local Iranic-speaking populations. This fusion of peoples, cultures, and technologies gave rise to the classical Scythians known to the Greeks. The model explains Eastern connections in their art and the Iranic language they spoke, solving a long-standing puzzle. Section 3. The Horse Lords. It is impossible to talk about the Scythians without talking about the horse. It was their transport. It was their weapon of war. It was central to their economy. It was central to their spiritual life. The Scythians were among the first true cavalry peoples. They practically lived in the saddle. They developed a symbiotic relationship with their horses. Greek writers joked a Scythian felt more at home on horseback than on his own 2 feet. Mastery of horsemanship gave them unparalleled mobility. It let them manage vast herds. It let them cross the enormous distances of the steppe. It let them strike enemies with bewildering speed and force. The Scythian horse wasn't a medieval destrier. Archaeology shows they were small, sturdy, and hardy. They could survive on sparse grazing. They could endure extreme temperatures. Scythians were brilliant breeders. Wealth was measured by size and quality of horse herds. They learned to ride bareback from a young age, often using only a simple saddle pad. This gave them incredible control and agility. Warriors could twist and turn in the saddle, firing arrows forward, to the side, or even backward at full gallop, the Parthian shot. Their economy revolved around pastoral herding, horses prized for mobility and warfare. Sheep and cattle were the subsistence backbone. Sheep provided wool for clothing, felt for their tents, milk, meat. Cattle provided food, leather, sinew. Mobile wealth fit the nomad. Assets moved with the people. Hunting and fishing supplemented the diet rich in meat and dairy, including fermented mare's milk, kumis, a drink that fascinated and repulsed the Greeks. The horse was a status symbol and sacred. Finest horses belonged to elite chiefs and warriors, adorned with magnificent harnesses with gold ornaments, bronze ornaments, bone ornaments. Harness pieces were functional art showing wealth and power. When a noble died, favorite horses were sacrificed and buried with him. Kurgan excavations confirm this practice. It shows the horse's spiritual importance. Companion in life, companion in death, companion on the journey to the world beyond. Section 4. Life on the move. Scythian society was built for constant movement. They did not live in permanent houses or villages. Instead, their homes were portable dwellings, what we would call yurts or gurs. The Greek historian Herodotus described these homes in detail. He wrote that the common Scythians lived in felt-covered tents that could be easily packed up and moved. The wealthier nobles, however, had much larger and more elaborate wagon homes. These were essentially massive wooden houses set on wheels, pulled by teams of oxen. He described them as having 2 rooms, or 3 rooms, protected from rain and wind by thick layers of felt. An entire community, a moving city of wagons, could travel across the plains. This mobile lifestyle shaped every aspect of their social organization. The basic unit of Scythian society was the family or clan. Multiple clans, who believed they shared a common ancestor, would form a larger tribe. These tribes were led by powerful chiefs or kings, whose authority came from their military prowess and their immense wealth in herds and gold. There was a clear hierarchy. At the top was a wealthy warrior aristocracy, the nobles who were buried in the grand kurgans. Below them were the common herders and craftspeople. There may have also been a class of slaves, likely captives taken in raids who performed manual labor for the elite. This constant mobility is what made them so formidable in the eyes of their settled neighbors. When the mighty Persian king Darius the Great invaded Scythia in the late 6th century BCE, he found himself completely baffled. He expected to find cities to conquer and armies to crush in a decisive battle. Instead, the Scythians simply retreated before him. They led his massive army on a wild goose chase, deep into the steppe, harassing his supply lines and refusing to engage in a pitched fight. They used the vastness of their territory as their greatest weapon. Eventually, frustrated and with his supplies dwindling, Darius was forced to retreat in failure, having never even captured a single Scythian town. This reputation for being an elusive, unconquerable people became a core part of their identity. The Greeks saw this lack of cities as a sign of being uncivilized. But for the Scythians, it was the key to their freedom and resilience. Their society was adaptable and fluid, able to disperse and regroup as needed. They were not tied to any single piece of land, because the entire steppe was their home. Their world was not defined by static borders on a map, but by the dynamic, ever-shifting patterns of migration. This nomadic worldview was fundamentally different from that of the agricultural empires on their periphery, and it was the source of their enduring strength. Section 5. Neighbors, rivals, and the flow of goods. The Scythians did not live in isolation. Though their heartland was the open steppe, their world was interconnected with the major civilizations of their time. They were key players in a complex network: trade, diplomacy, conflict. To their south, across the Black Sea, were the Greek colonies. Resourceful Greek merchants established trading posts, emporia, along the coast. These settlements became meeting points between the Greek world and the nomadic interior. The Scythians controlled the vast hinterland and the trade routes that ran through it, making them essential economic partners for the Greeks. This trade was a two-way street that benefited both sides: grain, salted fish, honey, and, most importantly, slaves. In return, the Greeks supplied the Scythian elite with luxury goods. Archaeologists have found an abundance of Greek items in Scythian tombs: fine pottery, wine amphorae used for transport, bronze vessels, beautiful glassware. This constant exchange reshaped Scythian art and tastes. To their southeast lay another powerful neighbor, the Persian Achaemenid Empire. The relationship with Persia was often more confrontational. The Persians under Darius the Great attempted a full-scale invasion of Scythia and failed. However, some Scythian groups were incorporated as subjects or allies. Scythian warriors were prized as mounted archer mercenaries. Their dress and weapons appear on the reliefs at Persepolis. This network of routes went beyond Greeks and Persians. The Scythians mastered the steppe route, a precursor to the Silk Road. Goods and ideas flowed along these paths. Chinese silk has been found in Scythian burials in the Altai Mountains. Controlling the flow of goods across the continent made them wealthy and powerful. They were not isolated barbarians. They were a vital link in the ancient global economy.